Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DiCE Lab. Today, we're going to talk about digital building logbooks. I'm really excited about it because I am doing my postdoc as part of DemoBlog. In DemoBlog, we are also working on digital building logbooks in the European region. Today, we have three speakers. Marta Gomez-Gil from University of Zaragoza. She has been publishing on this topic. We are really lucky to have her today on board. Jörg Ostermeyer is from Chill Services. He'll be talking about the practical applications of DBL. And Carolina Koronen from BPIE, she will be talking about the policy implications of digital building logbooks. A little bit about the DiCE Lab. I am one of the co-founders of the DiCE Lab. We founded DiCE Lab together with the colleagues from ETH Zurich during COVID times in 2021. We organized a few webinars on digitalization, and we focused on in each webinar a certain technology. And then we expanded actually our work. And actually, we're organizing three types of events in DiCE Lab. Today, you're in one of DiCE webinars, so this is open. We record it and we put our recordings on YouTube. We have special meetups dedicated to researchers. We focus on certain technologies or data-related issue. And since digital product passports are becoming an important topic, we started a new academic network. We organize bi-monthly meetups for that. And also we organize every year in-person seminar. The first one was in Delft 2 years ago, last year in ETH Zurich, and we are still organizing a new one. Probably it's going to be somewhere in October, November. We are working on the details and we will announce it on our website. Today we will start with an icebreaker and then there will be 3 presentations for about 15 minutes. And usually we don't have time left for a panel discussion. So probably we will have some minutes for each presenters. So, but we will create more opportunities to let them know about your questions because we have a Miro board I'll introduce soon where you can put your questions there. Marta.
Yes.
So you saw there are different opinions, I think, also for the definition of digital building logbooks. You've been doing research on this topic, and I'm really curious about your input on this. The floor is yours. Can you please start introducing yourself and then give us perhaps a definition of a DBL?
Well, yeah, I will start sharing my screen if I can. Can you see it?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Sultan, for inviting me. And it is my pleasure to be here talking about the DBL, Digital Building Logbook. First of all, I am going to introduce myself. As Sultan already said, I am Marta Gomez-Gil. I am a lecturer and researcher at the University of Zaragoza in Spain. My background is in architecture, but I focused on building sustainability and digitalization. My connection with the DBL comes from my PhD research, which explores the role of the digital building logbook in promoting renovation of buildings. Well, now let's move on to the conference that I have titled the European Digital Building Logbook, Facilitating Decarbonization in the Built Environment. In this conference, first of all, we will talk about why the DBL or Digital Building Logbook is important. Then we will move to explain how the DBL emerged. Then we will talk about the current development of the tool, and finally we will explore the next steps for the definition and implementation of the Digital Building Logbook. So, as you all know, one of the European Union's main objective for the medium term is to decarbonize the economic and production model by 2050. Buildings have a great role here because they are responsible for 40% of final energy consumption and 36% of greenhouse gas emissions. And of that energy consumption, around 80% is used for heating, cooling, and domestic hot water. So we have a very huge space for improvement in these aspects. Also, 75% of the European Union buildings are still energy inefficient, and we should renovate them. So we must take action in this sector. This is my first conclusion. But we have to take in consideration both new and existing buildings. For new buildings, we have to apply design and construction practices that minimize global warming potential. How? This involves achieving a high energy efficiency, applying circular economy principles, and making sustainable choices in materials and components. While for existing buildings, the focus must be, as I told you, on renovation strategies to improve the energy performance, reduce emissions, and enhance the quality of life for occupants. However, to take action on buildings, we need reliable data about them. For existing buildings, we need to go far beyond the energy performance certificate. We need also access to information such as the renovation history, the materials used, and maintenance records, among many other aspects. Also, for new buildings, we must ensure that everything incorporated into the project is properly recorded from design decision to components and systems. But the reality is that in many cases, this data is scarce or incomplete. For a large number of buildings, especially when we talk about the older ones, we don't have access to full renovation histories, material details, or maintenance records. And when we have, or when this data exists, it is often scattered across different sources, stored in incompatible formats, or not easily accessible. And is exactly in this context that building data repositories appeared. In recent years, many data repositories have appeared, primarily at the regional or national scales, to collect information about buildings from different perspectives. Some of these repositories are private, while others are public. And additionally, this is a distinction in the focus of these repositories. Some of them focus on renovation, while others focus on new buildings. Here in the screen, you can see some of the main initiatives when we talk about data repositories. For example, the warning pass is one of the most spoken ones, because it is considered as a reference about when we talk about data repositories. But when we talk about the Digital Building Logbook, we are talking about a repository that appeared in the academic world as one of the key components of the Building Renovation Passport. The Building Renovation Passport is a tool designed to enable deep state renovation, which is a type of deep renovation that occurs in many steps, making it more economically accessible. Within the Building Renovation Passport, there are two parts. The first one would be the Digital Building Logbook, while the second one would be the Renovation Passport. The Digital Building Logbook would be a repository that collects all the data that is needed to prepare a renovation roadmap. And the renovation roadmap would be the register that collects all details all the steps that the deep renovation should undergo to conclude the deep renovation. This approach about digital building logbook was adopted by the European Commission through two key strategies and action plans. We are talking about the Circular Economy Action Plan and the Renovation Wave. And this was the first time that the digital building logbook appeared in European official documents. This was also a huge milestone because this was the first time that the digital building logbook was considered at a bigger scale, at a European scale, because as I talked to you, first this kind of data repositories were considered at the regional or the national scale. But the point was that the digital building logbook was discovered to be useful also for several purposes apart from only facilitating renovation. And in fact, following this idea, a lot of European projects appear to explore the other uses or the other functionalities that the digital building logbook could have apart from renovation. We can talk about the first one, which was the Ivy Road, one of I would say the first project, the European project that started to talk about the digital building logbook. This was mainly focused on residential buildings, but we can also talk about the Aldrin project that talked about offices and hotels, and many others, as you can see here. For example, I would like to talk about the study on the development of a European Union framework for buildings digital logbook and the technical guidelines for digital building logbook, because they were directly commissioned by the European Commission to develop new ideas or models about the DBL. More recently, another Horizon Europe project appears, such as the EUB Super Hub or the Demo Blog, which are trying to contribute also to the development and implementation of the digital building logbook. And we cannot forget about independent research that is also being conducted in several universities across Europe. Well, all these developments lead to the inclusion of the digital building logbook in the last recast of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. Finally, this directive is talking about the digital building logbook and is giving an official definition for the tool. In this directive, the DBL is defined as a common repository for all relevant building data, including data related to energy performance, such as energy performance certificates, renovation passport, and smart readiness indicators, as well as data related to the life cycle global warming potential, which facilitates informed decision-making and information sharing within the construction sector and among building owners and occupants, financial institutions, and public bodies. Well, we have the official definition of the tool, but what will it be like? We don't know. In the definition, in the directive, we don't know. We don't have any information about anything else. So at this point, we need to go back to the research and to see what are the different initiatives proposing. And when we compare all of these projects that I was talking about, we can see that there are 6 key points, I would say. The first one is the starting point for the model definition. Well, here we can see that some of the models, some of the projects that are emerging, talk about the EPC, the energy performance certificates, as the father of the DBL. Others talk about the BRP, the Building Renovation Passport, as the main example for the digital building logbook. Other models start by studying other previous initiatives, for example, the one impasse, as I was telling you, or other local or regional initiatives that are important. And other models start from scratch, from different perspectives. Another key point is the one on stakeholders. Well, defining the stakeholders that are relevant for the DBL is very important, not only to include them in the process of defining this tool, but also to consider the role that everyone is going to have when the DBL is a reality. The next point could be the functionalities of the DBL. As I told you, the first one that was considered was being an enabler of the renovation, a facilitator for the renovation process. But there are a lot of proposals that talked about other functionalities, such as measuring the progress of renovation, or being a repository that allows to make predictive maintenance of buildings. So probably the functionalities will be more in the future when we achieve all the potential of the DBL. Another point is the structure of the tool. Here we are talking about the data that the DBL collects. So what will be the data fields that the DBL will have, and which will be the categories of the DBL? Well, I believe that it will be very or closely linked to the functionalities of the DBL. So it is very important that we define them. Also, data sources are crucial, because now we have a lot of data sources of buildings, such as the cadastre, the land registers, land property registers, and so on. But the point is that, first of all, they do not collect all the information that is needed for the DBL. And also there is a lack of readiness for these data sources to be combined with the DBL. I refer that to the fact that this is a problem of interoperability. Well, these data sources usually are old, and they are not prepared to have a API endpoint, for example, which is the means that we have to connect with the DBL. So the conclusion of this is that we need new data sources, and new technologies are a great opportunity to new data to be collected and to be linked to the DBL. And finally, talking about the operation and use of the DBL, this we don't know about this, because since there is not a defined model of the tool, it is difficult to predict how the operation and use will work. But it is important that we consider that there are some guidelines that we have to follow. Especially, we have to consider all the regulations that talk about the data protection. This will define the way that all the stakeholders can interact with the DBL, which kind of information will be accessible for each stakeholder, who will be the one that will collect and include the information, the data on the logbook, and so on. But we have to wait to see how this will be implemented, depending on the final model on the DBL. So to conclude, I think that to have a DBL implemented in the European scale, we have to overcome some barriers. For me, the first one would be the data availability. As I told you, there are issues regarding this scarcity of data, the data quality, the data openness, and the data scale. Also, there is the problem of the databases I was talking about. regarding the data that they collect and the lack of possibilities to interconnect with the DBL. And finally, the one of the other main aspects is that new building data needs to be collected, as most of the information that the DBL needs to be highly useful is not nowadays present in the databases that we have. So we need to implement new technologies to collect data. So with all of this in mind, we can conclude that it is necessary to standardize the process of collecting and managing information, as well as to modernize existing data infrastructures to meet new needs. And this includes improving their interconnection capabilities with other applications and working with more modern exchange formats. If we cannot achieve these objectives, well, the DBL will be difficult to implement, in my opinion. So thank you everyone for listening this presentation. And if you want to make any question or comment on anything, just please tell me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marta, for this really insightful presentation. You gave us the historical development of the DBL, also mentioned about the key points and some struggles. I don't know if there is any question, but I have one for you. I'm just checking the chat. I don't see any questions. So you mentioned renovation wave and circular economy action plan as a starting point from a pulse perspective. But when we look at the current DBLs, their main focus seems to be really on energy renovations rather than circularity. For circular economy, circular strategies, we have some kind of material passports initiatives or digital product passports. But how do you see their integration into DBLs? Do you see any opportunity to integrate circularity data, and how?
Yeah, sure. I think that this is one of the points that need to be developed in the near future to make a DBL which is fully functional. So, well, in my research, in my thesis, one of the aspects that I developed was a data model for the DBL, which was structured in different categories, and one of these categories was the construction and materials information. And in this point, I suggest to collect a material inventory of all the materials that are incorporated in the building. And when we define these materials or components of the buildings, I think that one of the data fields that we should collect is exactly the product passport.
Mm.
So for me, the connection would be in this point, collecting information on the materials that are present in the buildings to have all the perspective about the future of the material in terms of circularity, the future destiny of the material, the recycling possibilities, and so on. And one of the aspects to be included could be the product passport. So for me, the link could be in that point.
Yeah, thank you. Marta actually mentioned about really big challenges on data collection and the upcoming technologies. This is a really good bridge to Europe because CAPSA is doing an amazing job in terms of data collection and also the role of stakeholders in data collection. I don't know, Jörg, if you're going to talk about data collection at all in your presentation.
Almost exclusively, actually. So
Yeah.
there is one more question, I think, or when do we want to take that after?
I don't see it.
Colleen Boche, I think, raised her hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take the floor. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thanks. I was listening to the conversation. Thank you very much, Marta. It's very interesting. I don't know that much about digital building logbooks. I've read a few papers. I wrote some things about them tangentially. I'm a researcher in Luxembourg. I see some familiar faces there. But my question or my impression since the beginning was, is the DBL about everything? And sometimes I have the impression that many publications or certain initiatives, or at least the ambition of many people, is to say, well, we're going to put everything into this DBL. My BIM, my passports, my EPC, my data, but then, yes, okay, I would also like that for sure. But when you look at the technical challenges, like you've mentioned, format. I mean, BIM is a format. Passport is another format, which nobody yet really knows what it will look like either. Is it feasible, or is it something that, okay, we can aim at that, but what is, or from what you've seen so far, is there a practical solution at the moment that you would say this is sufficient, and then from this, in the next steps, people can do all the other crazy stuff, circularity, energy renovation, whatever they want to do? Do you have any sort of resources or anything we could look into?
Yeah. Before Marta, you answer this is a really good panel question. We can actually give the floor to Jörg. And then after Caroline, we can reflect on this, because this is a really important question, and we can hear from all our speakers.
Sure.
If you don't mind, Caroline.
No, it's fine. I'm sure that it's a very difficult thing to answer, and actually, the question is also for anyone else listening, because I think it's important that we understand what this is. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I am fully on this with you. But we will come back to this question for sure. Floor is yours, Jörg. If you could introduce yourself very quickly.
Yeah, you see my screen, right? Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me. My name's Jörg. I'm a professor for energy and buildings data at University College London. And what I'm presenting here on CAPSA is basically a company that we started out of university, and there are a lot of reasons why we have this company as a startup out of university now, which relate to previous comments and questions and challenges made. Of course, the banal answer is why do you source something out of university? You only do it because you feel this is going to speed up the things that you want to do. And I come to a number of cases for that. So CAPSA is the name of our building logbook or passport or whatever you call it, that we created in cooperation with the United Nations Environment Programme under the Global Alliance for Building and Construction. So it consists, absolutely no surprise, out of a data collection mechanism in the form of an app. There are other ways to get data in, and a portal. And these is our two colleagues, two policy officers from UNEP, who are currently registering data on the building they're in. Actually, they do that in order to prove how shitty it is, because they desperately want to get into a new one. And I can assure you it is a really bad building. So this basically brings us to what we have identified as the absolute #1 challenge in creating building logbooks. That is, how is the data going to get in there? Because everybody can program a database, and I'm a part in numerous task groups on working on ontologies in a group chaired by Microsoft, and one is chaired by Google, and everybody's kind of interested to reinvent the world. And they all arrive at BIM-like structures for data and 3,000 data points. And when they then create something and you ask, how is the data going to get in? The answer is, well, the office lady can copy that in, right? And you say, yeah, good luck with that. So first of all, nobody can expect a person to manually type over 3,000 data points for hundreds of buildings. Second, bluntly, the data is not there. So it's absolutely completely useless to think about that. And even if the data would be there, it would probably be inaccurate. And out of the 3,000 data points, also many, probably 2,500 are uncollectible, because you would need to X-ray the building or do similar stuff. So it would be completely unfeasible at scale. And we really think at scale. So we have, of course, you have a desktop version where you can work around and you can correct data, which brings us basically to the second big point, is if there is data in there, how do you ensure quality? How do you quality check? Is there any kind of algorithms which find unusual combinations for data points? And we are relatively advanced there, simply because we did probably 15 years of academic work on creating synthetic stocks for buildings. So we know quite a lot on what data points typically go with another. So if there is relatively good U values, or if there's insulation in the wall, the trend is that the windows are also pretty good. You cannot say that the other way around. So we're quite good at finding errors in data sets. It's quite a painful experience from numerous PhD projects. But yeah, this is the second step. But ideally, the better your data collection on site, the less of an automated data correction you need to have in the backend. And we probably the biggest learning over the last 5-6 years is really, how do you design a process where you can send 10 people to the same building and they do not come back with 11 results? How do you avoid that they start guessing? How do you focus really on primary data? And then what is that primary data? Because working with UNEP, another requirement for our building passport is it has to work everywhere in the world. Whereas all other building logbooks that I'm aware of typically focus on a certain commercialization niche in a certain country, a certain functionality they have a client for. Whereas we say, really, we want, in the end, yes, again, we would like to have everything on a building. We start from a certain point. We know that for a lot of things which are out there, EPC was mentioned, whole life carbon, refurbishment roadmap, whatnot, we also have to admit that there's probably close to an 80% data overlap between these. A whole life carbon, a refurbishment roadmap, an EPC, all of them need surface areas of the building. So they could share these data points. We spend a lot of effort to make data entry as robust and visual as possible. You will see that we mark buildings on a satellite image, not because we don't know the existence of cadastre data, but because cadastre data is more flawed than satellite images. Also, in many countries, cadastre data might not be available, or every municipality has their own API to their own cadastre data. And therefore, you would need to create hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of APIs. So that's not feasible. So the data collection that we run in CAPSA basically is an hour of a site visit. And if all of us, if we would visit a building, which is not a super complex building, but a reasonably complex building, after an hour, we would have seen everything there is to see. There is absolutely no use to invest more time. We would have checked the windows, we would have checked the wall, we would have knocked on the wall, we would have visited the roof, visited the HVAC room, and then, well, if we would have just documented that properly, we would really have a very clear picture on the building, because the next step would be somebody pick up the drilling machine and we drill into the wall to look what it's made up of. Before that, we can only guess. We strictly put guessing into the backend, into an algorithm, and focus the user on either saying he absolutely knows, then of course he can overrule the algorithm, or we ask him only to enter primary data. That's a little bit the philosophy of the whole process. Obviously, what is the lowest hanging fruit? The lowest hanging fruit is giving refurbishment advice and carbon estimates on the effect of these interventions in the portal. So that is the thing that we make money with as a company. So there are a lot of companies who have a carbon target. They need to now have a strategy on how to go there, and they need to know what it costs. And we partner with a finance broker, and we partner with banks who are very interested in brokering that money. But of course, then the building owner realizes that even though he constantly states that he has a lot of data, I've never seen a stakeholder who says, I have no data. Everybody starts with, oh, Mr. Ostermeyer, no worries on data in our organization. We really have a lot. In the end, they have nothing. They have the bank account number of their tenants. They have the address of the building. They have the construction year. That's typically the kind of level that we're working at. So we really, part of the work with CAPSA is you invest 1 to 2 hours per building to collect the data, and then we fulfill. We can of course track every data point. We know who entered it. We can very transparently describe what kind of data we collected, what is original data, what is derived data, and we work from there. So it's of course it's work in progress. So here you see our office in Hanover, where you have an overview. The 3D model that we're building from the data that we collect is upcoming in end of April. You can have lots of photos. You see the average U values of the building. You see the surface areas, etc. pp. So stuff that you would need to give you a pretty good refurbishment idea. And of course, you can play around with the building. What happens if I increase insulation? And you can run automated refurbishment strategies over, like saying, okay, insulate every roof which has a U value worse than 0.4. And which is bordering a heated attic space, for example. So we're very flexible in the rules that we run over the portfolio. This is the 3D model of a large building. So that's our current tests, what we can implement. So we can zone buildings. You can really go to any kind of granularity, but I think one of our drivers is that we don't think it's feasible to go for existing buildings on a digital twin level. It's just when we talk about willingness to pay in the market, we are talking about a couple of €100. And the tools out there, our competition, is typically either less than €100. Give me the address and I give you some fancy colorful graphs. Coming from an academic background who did this kind of synthetic data AI magic, I know that I would not base my investment on such a statement. Let's put it that way. And the other part of the competition is asking for thousands or tens of thousands of euros or dollars per building, which is completely unfeasible unless you are a non-residential office manager like the Alliance Group that we work with, or some banks who really have big, or hospitals. There it's feasible. Residential, everything I would say above a couple of €100, completely unfeasible. So we need to be efficient. We need to be efficient, and we need to find a sweet spot between the willingness to pay, the data robustness that you can get out of that. We are able to build a whole life carbon calculation from that. Of course, from the data, we can build an operational energy amount. We know the emission factors. From the data we have, we can also build material volumes. And then there's carbon factors for the material. Of course, at a certain point, you need to simplify. We don't think it's useful to be able to choose between 10,000 bricks. I can register you 10,000 bricks, absolutely no problem. There are material catalogs which have thousands of bricks, but when you go to an existing building, the only thing you see is, well, it's probably a brick wall. So 3 types of bricks from our view, totally enough. That is the first big project that we did, which is coming back to the reason that I see why we actually do that as a commercial company, although it's an impact company working under the umbrella of a foundation with UNEP. You have clients, and these clients there in the room represent 20 housing associations, and all in all, they own 90,000 units. So when you have a commercial offer, and they are aware that they are alpha or beta testers, you can really speed up your development in a way that we were not able to do it at university. So you have a certain turnover and profit that you can work with, and you have case studies, and you do not have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which we always had at university, the PhD student going and collecting some data. But we have thousands of buildings, tens of thousands of units, and there are some mistakes and phenomena which only show up when you do things by the tens of thousands and not by some dozen. There is a development plan. I would argue that, as opposed to the skyscraper, our development will never end, because we really run it as a development company. We had a soft launch recently at a UNEP Global Alliance for Building and Construction Assembly. Some of you may have been there. And the rest of the timeline, if you are in software development, you really take it with a pinch of salt. First of all, everything is always delayed. Second, everything is always more expensive than you thought it would be, and it's working less well and less robust. And once you think you have a robust idea on how to do something, you can be guaranteed that somebody finds a way to mess it up. So you iterate at least 1 or 2 more times. And then there is now an increasing amount of interest from countries working with us in the UNEP Global Alliance, who are interested to introduce building passports. And many of them are either in Eastern Europe or South America and West Africa. So there is a good chance that the development strategy will be reshuffled, because there are some things you need to make it work in these countries, which may bluntly shuffle the priorities around. So there might be some who are just not interested in ESG reporting, but they want to have other things, and they want to have certain cooling loads or other things calculated. We are cooperating with the IFC on that and the World Bank. So the people who calculate EDGE. So I think an important step for us is to very soon be able to partner with labels. And the label that we see the biggest potential, mainly when working with UNEP, is the EDGE label of the World Bank. Very bluntly, because that will be part of the upcoming Article 6 carbon trading mechanisms, and that will be the big driver in our view for global scaling of these kind of activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jörg. Yeah, there is a question or not. Okay, we unfortunately we ran out of time, Jörg, for your presentation. I'll quickly move to Carolina. Carolina, welcome. We have around 11 minutes left and the question to answer. If you could quickly present your policy perspective. You as part of DemoBlog, you've written a report on it's a policy fact sheet actually. I'm really curious about your insights into the policy side of the DBLs. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Sultan, and I hope you can hear me now. We had some technology problems at the beginning.
Yeah, I can hear you well, but I can't see you, but it doesn't matter at this moment because we're going to see the screen.
Great. Right. So just quickly, for those of you who don't know, Buildings Performance Institute Europe, we are a think tank that provides independent policy advice on all things buildings. We have an office in Brussels and also in Berlin, and we've been around for about 15 years now. It's interesting. Let me click through this. Voila. It's interesting because I'll take a similar starting point as our first speaker. But I'm not going to dwell very long on this because I think Marta covered it quite well. But just to give some kind of addition, we actually found another bunch of documents that also make references to DBLs during the previous European policy cycle. So just to reiterate that this idea was around, and there was a lot of thinking about in the policy world about how this can be used as a tool for policy implementation, initially not just for renovations, but also for other factors. I also want to, connect to something that Marta said about how DBLs are understood in the EU policy framework. indeed, the definition is that it will be a data repository. But I would like to nuance that view a little bit, because it is also described as a decision aid. And perhaps most importantly, which I will stress a little bit later in my presentation, it's also an instrument for information sharing. So our view on what DBLs can be as a policy tool stretches beyond just a data repository. We made this mapping of the different policy initiatives that make references to DBLs, and also try to categorize what kind of reference they're making. So we have these information tools that are also coming from the EPBD, the Smart Readiness Indicator, the Renovation Passport, and Energy Performance Certificate, that are, the link is relatively explicit on how DBLs will interact with these other building information tools. But we have a number of other initiatives where there's been some thinking of, oh, maybe DBLs could work as a kind of spider in the web, where you can collect the data and extract the data. But then when the policy documents came out in their final version, this link has not been described. And then we also have some additional potential links with policy tools that we think could be very useful, but where the link is not explicit in policy yet. Right. Another way of organizing or understanding how DBLs can fit in and connect different policy information tools in the building sphere is to categorize them first according to product level, building level, and corporate level, and understanding this as a sort of data supply chain, where some of the initiatives are aimed at creating data, and others at the corporate level, they create the demand for that data. And this means that we need to have a functioning supply chain between these initiatives, and this is a role that DBLs can fulfill. But we've heard from both previous speakers and also from questions from the audience that indeed this requires in practice that these things are interoperable, and it can be it's a big challenge to make this supply chain work, which I will also shortly get back to. Based on our analysis of the EU policy framework, we came up with some recommendations for policymakers about how to advance and strengthen the policy framework, and with a view of kind of making the most of DBLs as a tool for implementation of policy and to reach policy objectives, not just renovation, but also circularity, etc. And I wanted to point specifically at this about creating priority policy objectives. And this, I think, is also connected to identifying core data points, which in turn is sort of a part of the answer to how are we going to make sure that this data supply chain works, and to make sure that everything, we don't have to do everything at once, and we don't have to like solve the whole information puzzle at once. If you can define what are the most important policy objectives that we are trying to solve, and what are the core data points that we need to solve that, that also gives you a kind of where should you start with aligning these data supply chains. So this is something for policymakers to clarify, but also for industry practitioners to be ready to implement and to think about. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all of these findings, but I have a link at the end of my presentation where you can read the vision piece that presents the results from this workshop. And we think that, to solve this data problem, we need to have all the stakeholders come together and think of the solutions together, because different stakeholders have different needs, and they also have different contributions to make to the solution. And this is what we were trying to facilitate with this work. But I wanted to pick out also that EU policymakers can have a role in this by leading the development of this common data dictionary, by creating a federated data model, again, agreeing with previous speakers that having a data model that is common for everyone is a key thing. We also want to align the information requests along these data supply chains that I talked about before, so that so that companies or building owners, etc., don't have to report different things that essentially measure the same thing with, to comply with different regulatory initiatives, but that these things can be streamlined. And also that industry practitioners should be ready to respond to these growing data demands and not waiting to react to regulation, but starting to think about this in a more proactive way. The last thing I wanted to bring up, now I'm jumping quite quickly between things, but we talked a lot about the focus of the previous policy cycle, which was very much the renovation wave and energy performance, etc. As we know, the narrative in Brussels has kind of shifted away from green, and it's become more, popular among politicians to talk about the more social perspective of housing. And I mean, I think as most of us will agree that these actually go hand in hand. So there's a certain shift in narrative, but we still need to cut down energy use. We still need to, have a coherent plan for the European building stock. And I think digital building logbooks can also make a lot of contribution to these more social objectives. Harnessing the full potential of digitalization, making full use of the existing building stock by knowing what buildings are around, are they occupied, how could they be converted, etc. Help with planning and construction. So this is something that we at BPIE will be working on in our future work to show that there are links also to these this affordable housing project that the European Commission is taking on. So this is something to look out for going forward. Right, and these are the two publications that we have for those who are interested in reading a bit further. And with that, I say thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carolina. We can't still see you, but I really appreciate this nice overview of policy developments at the EU level. Thanks for that. I see one hand. We are already on time, but we can perhaps stay 5 more minutes to get the questions. Sarah, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you, but that's all right.
Yeah, okay, that's no problem. I just have one quick question. Thank you for your presentation, Carolina. My question is about what is your, because you talk about the main requirements and main data of the digital building logbook. What is your proposal or the main idea how you can identify the main requirements of digital building logbook? Because we already have a lot of models, data models, but I would like to know your opinion about these subjects. Are they really applicable, or we need to identify more requirements, or how you can confirm that they are really important to be included in the digital building logbook? Thank you so much.
I think the main, well, so there are two ways to answer this question. I think it's correct that maybe the main objective right now is on energy performance, but that is sort of already covered for because that is where the emphasis lies from the policymaker currently. I think the second one in line, where there are also some, there are existing DBL initiatives that already focus on circularity, as we've heard, but this is not something there's no top-down explicit priority to focus on circularity. So I think this is maybe the next one in line to make sure that you have a working integration with digital product passports, for example, that we've touched upon, many of us. So I would say those, this first one is energy performance, and the second one is circularity. But the list can be made long. As I said, you could also bring in more social things, like I think the Swedish one started as a kind of asbestos monitoring initiative, so it came from a more health perspective. So yeah, there are a lot of things you could think about.
Thanks for your answer, Carolina. Very last question that actually Colin, you're on the call still. Posed, like DBL is all kind of data container. Is it feasible, in short? I think, Marta, you were gonna respond to that. It's the moment. If you could keep it short, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I think this is a challenge, a really huge challenge, but the way I say it is that the DBL could work as a platform that by means of API endpoints could connect with different databases. So in this way, having like filters in the middle, probably it would be easier to connect all the information in different formats. But still, I think this is very difficult and could be one of the most difficult parts of the implementation of the DBL, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is the end of our webinar. Thanks everyone for joining and our speakers for sharing their insightful presentations with us. We'll be organizing another webinars in the coming months, and we will announce it on LinkedIn and on our website. So see you next time. Bye.